everybody. I hope that you're all doing well. Welcome to today's story time video. Before we get started, I like to remind you guys of a few things every couple of videos. The first thing, the link to my Instagram is always down in the description. I'm a lot more active on there, and I like to interact with you guys as well and share pictures about my life, so that's in the description always, as well as the link to my second channel where I have non-ASMR content, vlogs, sit-down videos, kind of just lifestyle stuff. That's always in the description, as well as the link to my Patreon if you're interested in getting 3 exclusive extra videos a month that won't be posted here on YouTube. Then you can get those over on my Patreon for $3 a month. What else? I think that's all the business that I had to share with you. So, yes, today is going to be a story time video, and yes, I do have gum in my mouth. But don't worry, it's not going to be obnoxious chewing. It's going to be very subtle. But a lot of you ask for gum videos, so I thought I would do some gum chewing a little bit because I never really do. So I'm sorry if that bothers you, but I promise it's not going to be a lot, and I think the story time will be worth it. So as a lot of you know, if you follow me on Instagram, then you definitely know my family and I recently lost my grandmother. Don't worry, don't click away, this isn't going to be a sad video. I actually want to make this video more as a celebration of her and her life. She lived one of the most full and interesting lives I think I have ever heard of. And so I thought that I would kind of tell you her life story / how she met my grandpa, and just turn it into a story time video. I was very, very, very close with her. She lived right next door, like the house directly next door from my dad my whole life. I grew up in her house. She was a very, very big part of who I am, and really was like the glue of my entire family. And so I feel like I want to do something more to like celebrate her. So I'm gonna tell you kind of her story, and I swear you could like make a movie out of this story. So I will start from the beginning. So I'm not gonna get too detailed in her early childhood because I don't know all the details, but you'll get it. So her name was Maria. Maria was born in 1926 on September 4th in 𝓢𝓸𝓬𝓲𝓪, Italy. She was the youngest of 14 children. And I believe her mother unfortunately lost 2 or 3, I think 2 at childbirth. So there were more. And her father, I believe, had been married once before and had 1 or 2 more children. So it's a lot of siblings. That's like close to 20. And she was the baby. She grew up in a very big family with a lot of kids to support, so there wasn't a lot of money to spare for, toys and dolls and such. And as she grew older, she had such a fascination with dolls. Like in her adult life, 40s, 50s, 60s, she had a fascination with dolls because she was never able to have them as a child. There was a little bit of sad news though. So when she was about 6 or 7 years old, she developed a sickness. I forgot which kind of sickness, but it required her to have a doctor come to the house to give her an injection. And I don't know the specific details, but basically the injection was done wrong, and it messed up the nerves in her legs. So she was able to walk, but she always had a very hard time, and she wasn't able to wear nice, heels or sandals. She always had to have shoes that you could lace up really tight. And she was always very self-conscious of it, and always very sad that as a child she couldn't wear sandals in the summer and nice shoes as she got older. So that was the one bit of bad news. But Maria grew up in such a loving family. When I was younger, I remember she always used to tell me, how many siblings she had, and then she would go, my parents, they really loved each other. Which, now being older, I know what she meant by that. She was a very feisty woman, very into that kind of humor. She grew up to get her bachelor's degree in teaching and became a school teacher for young children. Then one summer, when she was off from school, obviously because she was a teacher, her brother, the brother that she was very, very, very closest to, probably the closest out of all of her siblings, he unfortunately passed away. He was a soldier, and he passed away. And she was, needless to say, absolutely devastated. And so her family said, you know what, you have an aunt in the United States. Go visit her for a month or for the whole summer. Just get a change of scenery and, get your mind off of it, because she really was having a really hard time dealing with the news. So long story short, when she was, I want to say 35, 36, she came here to America, and she stayed with her aunt. Then one day, in her honor, her aunt threw her a party. Had a whole bunch of people come. There was food, there was music, and at that party there was a man named Frank. Frank was my grandfather. They had never met before, and he always said, I saw her and I knew it was like a love at first sight kind of deal. He met her, basically was like, I like you, I'm gonna marry you one day. And she felt the same way that he did and was like all for it. So they met that day in the summer. It was a love at first sight kind of deal, and needless to say, she never went back home. She came to America on vacation, met my grandpa, and never went home. They married in January, just a few months later, which may seem extreme, I guess, to people now, but simpler times back then, and they just knew. They just fell in love. But the interesting thing is that at that time, my grandmother did not speak English, and he did not speak Italian. He was Italian, but he was an American, Italian-American, so he didn't know how to speak Italian. She didn't know how to speak English, so I'm still not 100% sure how they communicated so well. But I do know that after, she moved here and she decided that she was going to settle here, she did go to it was either a local school or a local church for American or for English lessons, and she learned how to speak English. She also did not know how to cook at all. She learned how to cook from that aunt that she came to stay with originally, and I grew up with her being the best cook in the world. But when she first moved here, she didn't know how to cook, she didn't know how to speak English, nothing. So eventually they had their first daughter in 1964 named Anne-Marie, my aunt. And then 2 years later they had John, my father. So it was a very loving family. It was just the four of them. They only had 2 children. And, you know, every family has their issues. I know my dad always told me that, you know, my grandpa was old. My grandpa was 15 years older than my grandma. So he was born in 1911. And he passed away at 91 years old. I was 6 years old. I do have vague memories of him. I remember he had his one spot on the couch, and whenever I would walk by, he would like kick me in the butt or like poke me with his cane when I walked by, not in like an aggressive way obviously, but in like a cute way, or he would like pull my braids. He was very sweet. He was just already really old by the time that I was born. And my grandpa was I don't obviously mean this in a weird way, but my grandpa was very good looking when he was younger, and he knew it. And I always tell people this story, that when he got older, and you know, my dad and my aunt were already born, he would carry his war picture. He was in World War II, and he would carry his war picture in his wallet. It's a beautiful picture, beautiful. And he would carry it around, and if he went to a party or if people came over to his house or whatever, he, I kid you not, would in a playful way look at them and he'd be like, "Hey, you want to see my picture?" And then of course he would pull it out and show it to everybody. And then after he came home or the people left or whatever and it was just the family again, he would go, "Hey, what'd they say about me?" But he did it in a very playful, non-conceited way, but he did know that he was very good looking. Those are my 2 favorite stories about him that I always tell everybody. But yeah, so I guess in some ways it was harder for my dad and my aunt to connect with him because he was so much older. Like my grandma was already 39 by the time that she had her 2 kids. Not that that's like old, but you know, so if she was almost 40, he was in his mid-50s already with newborn children, you know. So I guess sometimes it was hard for them to connect with him, but like they still loved him and he was great. My grandparents were known for the parties that they would throw in their house that we still have. My aunt still lives in it now, and that's the house that I tell you guys I sleep in all the time. The middle floor nobody slept on, but it had a big living room and a big dining room, and they would host holiday parties in there. My grandmother would cook. They would have a big spread. All my grandpa's American family would come over. He had 3 siblings and their kids and their parents, like a whole bunch of people. It would be this big feast, and then afterwards they would all go into the living room. My grandpa was a piano tuner, and he was also a very accomplished violinist in a very well-known orchestra. I'm not going to say what orchestra, 'cause do you guys know how I am about like where I'm from, but in a very well-known orchestra. So that's what he did for a living. He dropped out of school after 10th grade, sophomore year of high school, he dropped out, so he wasn't really educated, but that's how he made his living. And so they would go in the living room, he would play the violin. His sister Anna was a concert pianist. She was even older than him, but she was a pianist, and so she would play the piano, he would play the violin, and my grandma would sing. And my grandma was actually once offered a contract to be a professional singer around the time that my dad was born, but she decided to not because she wanted to be home to like be a mom and raise her kids and have like a normal life with them, but she could have been a singer if she wanted to. So I grew up in a very, very, very musical family. What else can I say about her? My grandmother played the piano as well. She was like me. She did not know how to read music, like sheet music, but she knew how to play the piano by ear. And I was the same way. I used to know how to play the piano, but I couldn't read music. I would just kind of have to learn by watching and listening. I guess that just runs in the blood, but she played by ear. She never went back to work, to teaching. She became a housewife, but in her spare time she would volunteer. She would go to a local nursing home and, you know, sing with the people there, just, you know, as volunteer for fun. And I remember there was one lady, I forgot her name, but she was in the nursing home that my grandma volunteered at. And every Christmas she would be invited to my family's holiday party. Keep in mind, this is way before I was born. I was not, unfortunately, born for these big parties, but yeah, that lady would come over every year. Aside from the nursing home, she would sing in her local, like, parish at her church. And she was just very charismatic and just a people person, and people really, and I'm not even exaggerating, people would gravitate to her. She had this magnetic pull of just people loved her. She was overly extroverted while my grandpa was more on the introverted side, so they balanced each other out. And so she was also known as being an incredible matchmaker. And she would just pull people, and she'd be like, I think you two would be good. And she set up multiple people, and every single match that she made was actually successful. There was one person, this one girl, she's 10 years older than me. I've known her since I was born. She was at the wake for my grandma, and she said, you know, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here, because her parents were set up by my grandma, and they were together until the day her dad unfortunately passed away. So she always would say, you know, if it wasn't for your grandma, I wouldn't be alive, I wouldn't be here, you know. That's just the kind of person that she was, and everybody loved her. She was great at telling inappropriate jokes at inappropriate times, and of course she would say them in Italian, which made them even funnier. She loved red wine. She would have a glass of red wine every single day with dinner, and she claimed that's what kept her so healthy up into her 90s. She would take shots of things sometimes. There were a few times, even up to the point where she was 90, that I would catch her, you know, walking to the fridge, holding the big bottle of wine that they kept in there, and she would just chug it right from the bottle. And it was iconic, and everybody knew her for it, and my friends knew her for it, and because I would always send them videos of her, like, chugging wine, or, you know, just being silly. When she was in the car, she would, like, sing, like, songs on the top 40 playlist, like, that they play on the radio, and she would sing it really loud in her broken Italian accent, just to make my sister and I laugh. What else can I say about her? She was full of life. She was always the center of attention at parties, and she made everybody laugh, and she really just was an amazing woman. And she's the reason why I know all of the Italian that I do. I did study it in school for a couple of years, but my, like, foundation of knowing Italian came from hearing it at home all the time. And as she got older, she was still always healthy. Like, her vitals were healthy, her heart was healthy. She was a chain smoker for a while, but she quit when I was probably, like, 8 or 9, and she quit cold turkey. And yeah, most of you guys know how hard that is. And she just one day was like, okay, fine, I won't smoke anymore, and she never smoked again. So she was pretty healthy. But as she got older, she developed dementia. And if any of you have never seen dementia up close, it's a really hard thing to witness, especially when it's happening to someone that you love. I don't want to get too much into it because I know I said that this was supposed to be like a happy celebration video, but yeah, dementia is no joke. Basically, I mean, it affects people differently, but her case of dementia was less about her memory and more about her behavior, and she just became very irritable and miserable and cranky and angry, and that wasn't like her at all. And so we as a family knew that it wasn't her, you know, like when she would call you names or when she would hit you, we didn't take it personally because we knew that she had no idea what she was doing, and she couldn't control it. Sometimes she wouldn't even remember what happened. You know, like you would ask her later, like, why did you hit me? And she'd be like, oh, I didn't hit you. You know, it was very frustrating. And she got these little compulsions, like, where she would say the same thing over and over again, and she'd be like, she would just say, like, take me away. And we'd be like, where do you want to go? And she'd be like, anywhere, like, let's just go. Or like, where do you want us to take you? You know, stuff like that. Or she always had a pillow behind her head on the couch, and she would say, fix me. And we'd be like, but what do you want me to do? And just fix me. So even if you would just like touch the little pillow a little bit, even if you didn't really move it, then she'd be okay. But then 2 minutes later, she'd be like, fix me again. It was just these compulsions where she just didn't know what she was doing. And so October of 2018, almost a year ago, is when we finally made the hard decision to bring her to a nursing home. I don't like nursing homes, and we wanted to keep her at home in her own house for as long as possible, but it just wasn't practical. She couldn't be cared for at home anymore. She had stopped eating. She wasn't sleeping. She would sleep for maybe a half an hour a night, and she would scream the rest of the time. It just wasn't healthy for anybody. My aunt, who was basically her caretaker, was falling asleep at work because she wasn't sleeping at night because she was with my grandma. We had aides that came to stay with her, sometimes during the day, sometimes at night, and she scared every single one of them away because she was very mean to them. Again, not on purpose, just that's the mental state that she was in. Anyways, long story short, she had been in the nursing home for about 10 months, and she was cared for really well there. My aunt went to see her 4 times a week, and after a while she had stopped eating, but she would eat, you know, cookies and little chocolates and like a donut here or there, ice cream, and that was okay because she really was not eating anything. So the doctors put her on a non-restrictive diet, which basically means that you can eat anything you want as long as you're putting calories in your body. So the doctors said, you know what, it's fine. Let her have what she wants. She's 92. She deserves it. So she went out eating like we all wish we could, ice cream and donuts and cookies and you know, but she was still losing weight. And Maya is snoring. Can you hear her? She's such an old lady. I'm sorry if you can hear that. Anyway, so yeah, those were her last couple of meals, and eventually it just came time where her body just shut down. And people say that dementia is a very long goodbye. And I never really understood what that meant until I saw it up close, and it's true. The first 2 days after she passed were really, really hard for me and for my family. I was a wreck. The night that I got the phone call, I cried harder than... I don't even remember the last time I cried that hard. But as of right now, it's been almost a week. As of today, she passed away 6 days ago. And as of today, I'm very much more at peace with it. The grandma that I grew up with, she really hasn't been around for the past 2 years, so in a lot of ways I've already kind of mourned for her. I remember her last birthday last year was very hard for me and for my dad, because we had a feeling that we were kind of nearing the end, sort of. So in a lot of ways I already mourned for the grandma that I knew. The grandma that I had for the past almost 2 years wasn't my grandma that I knew. She was miserable, and she was trapped inside her own mind, and she was angry, and that's no way for anybody to live, and you don't want to see someone you love live like that. So of course I miss her, and I hate that she's not here, but at the same time, I believe that she's now with my grandpa again, who she hasn't seen in 17 years, 16 years. She's with all of her siblings, she's with her parents. She was the last sibling left, she was the baby. And I think that they're all together now, and that she's happy, finally. I'm not gonna cry, but really, I'm feeling much better and more at peace with it, and now it's just up to my family and I to keep her traditions alive, keep her recipes alive, and I'm sad that my kids will never get to meet her, but they'll know all about her. And that's why I wanted to make this video, just to document all this. And I think that her story was just too good, and she was too amazing of a person for people not to hear her story and to not hear about her. And so you will probably be watching this on September 2nd, and if you are, tomorrow would have been her 93rd birthday. Nope, just kidding. In 2 days, it would have been her 93rd birthday. September 4th would have been her birthday. So that's why I wanted to upload this week. So happy birthday, Nona. I'm gonna stop there before I start sobbing. And I'm sorry, I know I said I wasn't gonna make it sad, but really, this was like a life celebration. And right, couldn't a movie be made out of her story? I think it would be a great movie. But maybe I'm just biased. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the whispering and the very subtle gum chewing. And I appreciate you guys and all your kind messages and comments. So thank you, I love you, and I will see you in my next video.